Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we've got another daily dose of dismal Disney for you. We're going to talk about a Disney lawsuit. They're being accused of religious discrimination. So Geeky is going to lead this video because I really don't know what's going on.
Well, we got an email sent to us?
We got an email sent to us, yeah. So we're just going by what the legal team is saying. We also have the court documents here, but it's a pretty interesting story because if this is true, it actually does confirm that Disney is very biased toward people based on their political affiliation, and in this case, their religious affiliation, and they were trying to silence conservative voices in their company. What was it, like a Slack channel or something?
Yeah, it was something like that. It was their internal social media that this happened. There's a couple things leading up to it, and then what happened to social media, and then the way it was handled afterwards is even kind of questionable. And a lot of it ties back to the "Don't Say Gay" debacle. So here's what happened. There's this woman, Candace McGee. She was a Disneyland security person, and her lawyers are claiming that she was fired for religious discrimination. She was at the company for 23 years. They're basically suing for future wages, lost in future wages, benefits, bonuses, stock options, medical benefits, lost vacation, sick pay, other benefits, emotional distress, mental anguish, pain, suffering, humiliation, enjoyment of life, reasonable attorney fees, court costs, expert witness fees, and punitive damages.
Wow.
Bingo.
Okay, so let's talk about that because they've been getting sued a lot lately for a lot of different reasons. And this is a pretty interesting case. This might actually help the case of Gina Carano if it can be proven that there is just widespread discrimination against.
Well, you said before
voices.
that they were suing was this over religious discrimination over the COVID shots? Is that what this was about?
Yeah, so they've had multiple lawsuits over discrimination. I know there were some conservatives in California that were not real happy with them either. And I don't know if that was a separate lawsuit or not, but they said that they were not allowed to express themselves religiously in California without fear of repercussion.
Yes. And that's interesting because they were also doing things like, cast members who are transgender can wear the costume with what they identify as to be public facing. They were allowing people to use certain hairstyles they weren't allowed to use before. They were allowed to have tattoos exposed and things like that. But you can do all that, but you're not allowed to say that you're religious. Well, you can as long as it's Christian religion.
Well, it's interesting because we pointed this out before. Disney used to have a Christian festival. They used to have a Christian music festival, and then they stopped doing it. I'm trying to remember what year. I want to say it was 2016 or 2017. And then Universal actually started the Christian festival. And so I think this was all part of the same movement where they're just like, let's just push the religious people out of Disney,
Well, there's a whole lot going on with this. So among the things that they sent over the court documents, what was filed for what happened. And going through it, I'm going to go to some of it, but I can just cover a bit of it. They said that she was reprimanded for telling guests Merry Christmas during Disneyland's Christmas celebration.
What?
For which they profited from. So Disneyland does a Christmas celebration that they make money from. And because she told guests Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, hoedown for
I don't know.
like Christmas, yeah.
But she said Merry Christmas and then she got in trouble for that. Apparently she got into a religious beliefs discussion with somebody else that she worked with. And they said that it was that she kept it within Disney language and Disney acceptable standards. But the person complained. And then she got told not to talk about religion at work, but they were talking about religion at work too, and they claimed that they never got any kind of anything for it.
Yeah, this makes sense that this is Disneyland. I think Disneyland in California is going to be a lot more strict about it than Disney World in Florida.
So apparently this thing started on this Yammer thing because it was right after when Iger came back in November of 22. He had put out a statement basically saying that, that the company is one of tolerance and, other people's viewpoints and respect and things like that. And he said it at the town hall meeting. I don't have the exact quote. It's on my article if you got the piratesprincesses.net. Anyway, after that, this Yammer thing started to be a problem. So on this internal social media, this Stevens, identified as C. Stevens, who says they're in legal. Okay. They said that they're part of the legal team. And they posted this. They said, in general discourse, I've noticed that what most people seem to mean by don't be political means not centering stories on women, people of color, LGBTQ+, non-binary, transgender, or other marginalized communities, which I'm sure this person is a part of. I don't know that, but I'm betting that's what's going on.
99% sure that this is the case. Yeah.
It comes up later, too. And sometimes they don't even mean putting any of those people in those categories in prominent roles, but putting them in films and shows at all. I've long held the view that many people wanted to brand as political discussion is really just human discussion, says this one person. Imagine how hurtful it is to be told that at this time and time again, your existence is a political matter, stripping you of your humanity, which is ironic because they've already done that to her prior to leading this, that they basically made her afraid to admit she was religious for fear of reprisal. Right. Okay. Which discrimination, religion discrimination, is one of the things that he's supposed to be against. Okay, so this person makes sure that they mention they're from legal, so people think it's okay, and they start. Right. A lot of people offered supportive comments, and they were neutral comments, but there was a lot of other posts directly or indirectly attacking religion, religious values, etc., etc. She still didn't say anything. So I guess this went on for a bit, and then somebody else said something. It sounds like a lot of these comments were anything she was participating in, but this person, RT, stated, "We're here to entertain them with wholesome movies and cartoons that the whole family can watch without trying to indoctrinate them."
Right.
So then this R. Spang, who comes up a lot as well, wants to know what does wholesome mean? And then that Stevens showed up again and started challenging this other person about what wholesome means. And they basically are arguing that Stevens saying that they were from legal and giving a behavior they were giving, it seems like people thought it was acceptable to do so because Disney itself never punished anyone for behaving this way, never questioned anyone. No one was they never stepped in and said, "Hey, you're violating policy," nothing. So other people started doing it even more and getting more egregious because these people were allowed to model stereotyping, quote unquote. So it goes on and on, I guess, between these groups and the Spang and that whatever, the other person that was a legal person, Stevens, and this other person back and forth. And it kept getting more and more, it just kept spiraling more and more and more. And then the one person said that they're opposed to sexual content in children's programming, and that Spang got all mad about it.
Spank.
And it's really hard to keep track of.
Spank got all mad. Basically, the way it sounds to me is that they were having a discussion in the company communications, and they took issue with the fact that Disney shouldn't get political, but then to them it's like to them getting political means no LGBTQ stuff.
Yeah, but that's not what they were saying. Right. And then they said, "Remember, folks, it's okay to indoctrinate children when it comes to religion and whitewashing of American history." And they keep making comments, and they kept labeling Christians as racist and inherently evil. And they weren't even mentioning anything involving LGBTQ anything, apparently.
Yeah, and this tracks though, because this is very similar to what we've heard. Disneyland, especially being in California, is a lot more woke. Let's be honest, they are. That's where a lot of this stuff started. The whole change in all the stuff at Disney. It started in California and Burbank. And I do know that there were other employees that had issues at Disneyland expressing their religious beliefs.
You're not allowed to unless you're any religion but Christian.
Right.
So at this still point, McGee hadn't said anything. She's one that was fired, but she was distressed over the overt attacks on her religious beliefs. And she said that Disney, because they were running this board, they openly invited and permitted discriminatory, harassing, and retaliatory conduct against religious persons without regard for defendants' policies, because their policies are supposed to be acceptance and you're allowed to, stereotype based on religion, culture, that kind of thing.
Right.
So apparently she commented finally. She engaged for the first time in the thread in a gracious and compassionate manner, but they don't tell you what she said, really, which other than sexual content in children's movies are not acceptable ever. That's all they say that she said.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably more to it.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing though. I don't know. I mean, a couple of years ago, I think that Yeah, again, it depends on what she said. We don't know exactly, but I think that a couple of years ago it would have been a slam dunk for Disney. They would have been like, "Yeah, she's just the bigot and come in." But now that they're walking stuff back themselves.
Well, I mentioned this in the article I did. It's funny because they keep saying about attacking LGBTQ people, but Disney themselves told them not to put LGBTQ stuff Inside Out too.
Right.
So
right.
They themselves have walked it back from there. But she said about not putting sexual content in movies, and to which somebody said, Satan seems to think he's going to get away scot-free, but nope. And then this is what he said, that that this person brought religion in by invoking Satan. It had nothing to do with.
Oh, geez.
So
where are the mods? Where are the mods?
There is none. That's it. If you say this stuff, you're in trouble. But if you say this stuff to her and stuff against religious people, you're allowed. They said several cast members took issue with her comment, improperly saying that she was referring to LGBTQ plus people and that they don't belong in children's movies, which just wasn't what she said. She was saying, we shouldn't be sexualizing kids' cartoons. She never brought any she never even said LGBTQ plus. Nothing was said there. And long and short of it, it goes on, and she ends up getting fired for what she said in this. But we're not showing everything that's being said. But it doesn't end there. It actually gets worse.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Okay. So after, she, got fired and she had to go through all the stuff, she wasn't allowed to talk about her religion. She wasn't allowed to, even on the internal chat, she could watch everybody else talk about her religion in an incorrect way, but she wasn't allowed to say anything. So then she gets investigated. Okay. So she's already fired in December, I believe.
Right.
And then, without previous warning, in early January 2023, this document claims that her direct manager called her into a room to talk. When she got there, she found another manager present and the defendant's human resource cast member investigator, Sarah Lutz.
A cast member investigator? Jeez.
Well, it gets better. Sarah Lutz was on Zoom. Okay. So they had told they wanted to question her. They weren't telling her that's what they were doing before she got there. They just wanted to talk. So she got a representative, I guess, in for her. And then during the meeting, Lutz instructed all present they were not permitted to record the discussions in any fashion. Instead, just Lutz would take typewritten notes. And they did not provide the notes to McGee to review, edit, or confirm that it was accurate.
Okay.
Which is something, I guess that's something else that came up when the person accused her of religious, talk, and she got in trouble that first time. When the person when the higher up mentioned it to her, there was inaccuracies in what they were told, and she said that's not exactly what happened. That's not true. Right. But they never ever questioned the other person, or they just took the other person at their word, but she was lying. Basically, is how it was, kind of presented. So then they said thereafter, Lutz verified her notes were incomplete and notably incorrect. But then they never gave her a reason for this investigation. And then there was that was 30 to 45 minutes. And then apparently there was another one later on. But they said that during these investigations, Lutz repeated questions about her faith and reasons for mentioning her religious beliefs and Yammer that other people were mentioning before she jumped in.
Right.
But they were allowed. Because they were bashing them. But why was she bringing up her religious beliefs in Yammer? And then she didn't change her answers, and she was polite, according to the legal team. They said Lutz's intense and often unfriendly focus on her religious beliefs and her religious motivations for her Yammer post demonstrated bias against her religious beliefs and religious expression. And they said that Lutz was questioning the defendants objected to McGee's post about real or perceived religion and did not want McGee to further post about her religion or religious beliefs on Yammer. But it was okay for everybody else to slam her religious beliefs on Yammer.
That is often the case. That sounds very much like every freaking subreddit. That sounds like you're only allowed to have strong opinions on one side of the aisle.
Right. And that's what they're claiming happened. They said that they questioned her post about, sexual content belonging in children's movies. And they asked her what that meant. And she said, well, she was talking about, they said that she didn't mention or imply LGBTQ anything. And they said that the example she was referring to was like Beauty and the Beast when they had compromising positions and busty, barely covered blondes. And the word sex butt out in Smoke in the Lion King, or the phallic rock formations in Cars. And she noted none of these examples she was referring to ever referenced the LGBTQ community. And she never said anything about the LGBTQ community. So apparently what the crux of it is somebody named B. Wilcox attributed her comments to Lightyear. And they were saying that they were specifically, that they were trying to, bash LGBTQ people. And then they perceived that that they knew immediately that she was referring to Lightyear and the girl-on-girl kiss. And when questioned, McGee hadn't even seen Lightyear, didn't know anything about the kiss.
Nobody watched Lightyear.
Yeah, I know. She didn't even know. She didn't even watch the movie. And then they said they kept giving her posts and then saying that she knew about them or she attributed them to her. And she's like, I didn't even write that. I didn't even see that post. Her name wasn't even on these posts. But they kept ignoring the fact that she didn't even write the stuff. And they said, due to discriminatory bias, defendants continued the investigation. And then they found out that, hold on, even after her firing, they kept investigating her because this Wilcox complained.
Okay.
And they said because she's Christian, she's predisposed to engage in discriminatory bias.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right.
They said the defendant gave it like the complaint stereotyped McGee on the basis of real and perceived religion, assuming without any evidence that she would discriminate against those who identify as LGBTQ+, even though there was no history of her ever doing so in the past. And, they fired her because this one person complained that they in their mind, this is what happened. And they kept interviewing her and investigating her for her comments, but she was one of several people who commented. And there's no word about what happened to anybody else who commented. So, they said that this is going on. They said the second investigation lasted for an hour. No documents were shown throughout the questioning. And it goes on and on. So then that's what they're talking about, why they're suing. And look, here's the thing. I don't think you should talk about religion at work. It probably isn't the smartest thing to do. That being said, they were already, at least when it comes to Yammer, which seems to be the biggest part of the problem. Yeah. People were already invoking religion into the discussion and attacking people who they deemed religious. So when the religious person's like, you're misconstruing something and they try to correct them. Let's be like, okay, if I would stereotype somebody who was not white and somebody who identified the way the type of person I was misconstruing said, no, I am that type of person. You're misconstruing this. You're not understanding this. Here's what we actually think. And then I got them fired for it.
Yeah. That's look, I'm going to be honest. And this is, what these activists, a lot of times they will lay traps for people. They know that they're going to, and this happens on social media all the time too. They're like, I just, this morning I saw some friends on Facebook and, now that I've actually used Facebook for the first time in like 3 years, I'm seeing people's posts now and I'm like, there's bait. They're laying the landmines because they were trying to ferret out who is a Trump supporter and who isn't. And I'm like, she didn't take the bait though. They kept trying to get her to change her story or whatever, and she didn't change it. And they said that they made her write a statement, and then she was a dedicated employee, wrote a statement, though still was unclear what the issue was. And it took 2 hours to write a statement. Well, she was forced to remain in the room while I guess that's the other person wrote the statement. I'm trying to understand this. It's all over the place. And then after providing a statement to Lutz, the defendants advised McGee they were placing her on investigatory suspension. That sounds like a investigatory. That sounds like a investigatory suspension. Okay, all
investigatory right. Journalism. McGee inquired about what she was being investigated for and why she was being suspended, and they refused to answer. After inquiry again, they advised they could not answer because they didn't know. They didn't provide any documentation concerning investigatory suspension. They said they collected her credential, her badge, and advised they would contact her and send her home. They already decided to terminate her and even had termination paperwork ready for her the day of the second investigation.
So I mean, I don't think it would go to court if it, because I'm sure they have records of all the stuff that was said in the chat.
They tried arbitration first because the union, and the arbitration failed. And the grievance stuff failed apparently, and so now
because they got a bunch of activists and the people that I'll tell you that most of the people at Disneyland in California probably agree with this because they're like, we can't have hatred at Disneyland and we don't like your religious beliefs.
They said that she was wrongfully and voluntarily terminated in May. They said when this hearing. discrimination, harassment, and retaliation for her religion, her religious expression, etc. She was terminated for her comments. Other cast members who made non-religious comments or expressed views that align with defendant's stance were not investigated or disciplined, even though technically they were discriminating and harassing. They said the views that aligned with McGee's stance, though not motivated by religion, were not investigated or disciplined either. They said that all forms of unlawful discrimination, harassment, retaliation, their policy prohibits it, but then they let other people do it to her, and then they got rid of her.
Yeah, it's interesting though that they said the inclusion key was.
I know, right? When they say inclusion,
specifically,
they mean anybody who is not white, straight, male, or religious, a Christian. You're allowed to be any other religion. Ironically, some other religions are far more harsh on LGBTQ things than Christians, but those are acceptable. So that's why they're suing. But you're not hearing this anywhere. I mean, now granted, it was just filed today, but I was looking for information about it before I wrote the article, and nobody else is covering it.
Yeah, that's really strange because I know that they actually sent it to our inbox. It's legit, but I'm thinking that some of these media outlets agree with Disney, and they're going to be like, "Yeah, we're not."
They're afraid of getting their media access revoked.
Well, that could be too. I mean, there could be a number of reasons, but I mean, this definitely ramped up, from 2020 to 2022. That was like the peak DEI era of Disney, and you were not allowed to break ranks at all. Now, the only reason they're pivoting now is because it's hit them in the wallet. It's hit them at the box office.
Well, that's what gets me. I mean, look, I am totally against, I don't think you should be talking about religion at work at all. I really don't think you should be. So in that regard, I kind of, see their stance. But the other person was talking religion too. He or she should have been told the same thing. Somebody
needed to be an impartial moderator. Needed to be like, look, if things are getting too personal or too whatever, then we need to just stick to company stuff. But when you make the inclusion key part of the company culture, then that's going to open up these discussions.
It's not even that. The DEI rules that Disney set out should have covered her in this. But beyond that, somebody claiming to be from Disney Legal kept doing this and kept getting involved in these discussions and act like they were the authority on it. Yeah. So other cast members are like, okay, well, if Disney Legal's saying this, then we're allowed to say it too. And the problem is they, as far as I'm aware, those people were not ever disciplined for violating the same rules they claim that she violated. It has to be evenly enforced, and it clearly was not. Yeah. And you're not allowed to be intolerant of others unless you're Christian. And then even though she didn't say anything that was targeting anyone specifically, she's targeting everyone, and she needs to be fired.
Yeah. So I mean, if she was being obnoxious and was just like, you're all going to hell, then yeah. I mean,
we don't have all the posts. To be fair, we don't have all the posts. We don't see exactly in context.
We are reporting one side of it, her lawsuit. But I just will say that I have seen other instances of this, alleged religious discrimination. And, it's almost always Disneyland, because it'd be really hard to do that in Florida, given the leanings of most of the people in Florida compared to Disneyland. But Disneyland, it's like open season on Christians, it seems like.
But Disney themselves walked back the LGBTQ stuff. But Disney themselves, she's allowed to say Merry Christmas. Or show any outward signs of being religious, but cast members who identify, they're trans, identify as a different gender, are allowed to wear those costumes publicly.
Yeah. There was, like you said, there's definitely a difference, and I mean, it's either got to be like everybody's, kind of treated the same, and we're agnostic. Disney, the company, is agnostic. We don't, or we're not necessarily atheist, but like we're blind to whatever your religious beliefs are. Whatever, as long as it doesn't interfere with your duties, and you're not harassing people. I mean, if you're on the job harassing people,
saying Merry Christmas isn't exactly what I call harassment.
When they have Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party,
that's at Walt Disney World, but yeah,
but I'm just saying, like, it's really hard to make a case for that when you've got Christmas Mickey stuff and Christmas Disney stuff. To be like, you're not even allowed to say Merry Christmas. Now, if you're like, everybody has to say Merry Christmas, and that's it, because we don't acknowledge anything but Christmas, and then okay.
Here's a question: do LGBTQ plus cast members, are they allowed to acknowledge that they're LGBTQ plus during like the gay nights and the special events for Pride Month and stuff? Are they allowed to acknowledge it? I don't know. Yeah. I'm asking legitimately, because if they're allowed to acknowledge that they are, and they're allowed to show that they are, why isn't she allowed to show people that she's Christian and she's And she said, and say Merry Christmas. I mean, I'm just saying.
They're going to say it makes people feel unsafe.
Well, that's what they kept saying. They kept saying they felt unsafe. Meanwhile, they were making kind of threatening comments to her that made her feel unsafe. I didn't cover all the comments, but some of the things that were said made her feel unsafe. And it's like, but that's okay if she feels unsafe because she's the problem. I'm just saying, if you're gonna do this, you need to evenly enforce these rules, and that's where I'm at. They need to evenly enforce it. It either applies to everyone or no one.
Yeah. And that's just it. And again, you want to talk about bias. You want to talk about, when the company has clear bias in one direction or the other, right? Then it complicates matters like this because, people that agree with the company or the majority of the people at the company are going to get a pass. They are, because the company culture agrees with them. And again, this popping up as soon as they had the DEI stuff and the inclusion key, it was throwing kerosene on the fire. Actually, I think, again, this is another instance of, DEI doing more damage than good, because now you've actually created divides, right. I think, in a lot of ways that weren't there before.
They didn't come down on it. They didn't just go into this when they knew, and she reported it. Well, I guess what started was she reported the comments because they were so egregious, and then they end up going after her. And it's like, this is my thing. It's like, if you're not stopping them and people are violating your own policies in the comments, but they're allowed to, and then you have Disney legal people, joining in and encouraging it. And then meanwhile, letting other people get dogpiled, that's really, really crappy. And it's a double standard. So that's apparently why they're suing. I don't know if anybody's going to cover this or not. I'm just going by what I was given as the actual filing. I can't confirm or deny any of this information other than read to you what was in the filing. But I hope other people cover it, because if it's true, it's definitely a double standard.
If it's true, this is not an isolated incident. I can almost guarantee you it's not an isolated incident.
No.
And again, we saw with the Gina Carano situation, same kind of thing where they dragged her into a Zoom chat, or they wanted her to go to a Zoom chat where she's going to be dogpiled by a bunch of activists that were going to shame her into agreeing with them.
Because she wouldn't put pronouns in her bio.
She wouldn't put pronouns in her bio, and like hardly anybody at Lucasfilm puts pronouns in their bio. So, whatever. Things are changing, but it's like there's definitely going to be a lot of damage. And I think that, I think there are going to be a bunch of lawsuits that come out in the next couple of years. People that were negatively impacted by the DEI initiatives, whether they got passed over for promotions, or they had religious discrimination or gender discrimination or whatever it is. Those 2 or 3 years that they went super woke, could make them go super broke just in paying legal fees. I'm just saying. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I mean, I'm interested
to see if anybody else starts filing claims that might have had similar experiences, because I doubt she was the only person, especially if other people in the comments were also saying things before she jumped in that were like questioning stuff, and then she jumped in herself. I wonder what happened to some of these other people.
Yeah. I mean, again, within reason, if somebody's actually out there and using their religion as a cudgel to beat other people with it, or ideology, because a lot of people, they view their ideology as their religion. They're like, well, I'm an atheist, but I believe these things very strongly. I'm like, well, you believe those things very strongly. You have an ideological bent. It basically is your religious belief system, because you have a guiding principle, right? And if you're beating people over the head, every given at work, it gets annoying. As long as she wasn't doing that and just was kind of like,
Well, that's what I'm saying. If I don't know, and if you were at work, and I mean, this is apparently on this Yammer chat, but if you were at work constantly saying about, you're allowed to sit there at work and be Christian and think to yourself and pray God in your head, as long as you're doing your job and things like that, but you really aren't supposed to be at work bringing up religion. But that's the same for anything else. At work, you're not supposed to be bringing up, identity politics and things like that. You're supposed to just do your job. Yeah. And if it turns out people were at work talking with people about their, LGBTQism, and all that stuff, and making it, in a way that was considered like you would consider her talking about being Christian, that's a problem too. And my thing is always err on the side of caution. Just don't mention any of it, because it's not, you're at work, do your job, keep your head down. It's not the place to mention it. Across the board, but anymore, and if someone was bashing Christians in front of me and it was unfair, I probably would get mad and say something too.
Well, that's the thing. Well, that's just it, because that's it. You're not, it works one way. You're not allowed to, I mean, especially now if you look at what's going on in the Middle East, I guarantee you if they were in one of these company chats attacking, Israel, but it would be.
Oh, which I'm sure they probably did.
Yeah, what I'm saying, like, it just depends. It has to be evenly enforced. Now, I don't know if they would go there because, Bob Iger probably wouldn't like it.
This is Bob Iger. This is under Bob Iger, though. This Yammer thing happened because of Bob Iger's statements. It happened when he came back. So he was there when this went down.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see if anybody else covers it, if there's more information. But I think we're going to see a lot of these because those, like I said, those 2 or 3 years where Disney really doubled down on the DEI stuff could cost them for years to come, not just in customers, but in lawsuits from employees. Yeah. So we're going to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Okay, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.